Hi, this is Father Louis Skirty with Howard Jost. Howard and I have been on previous episodes sharing stories of the relief services in Asia. He was a member of the relief services and world services.
It's called Church World Service.
Church World Service. And thank you for being here again.
My pleasure. Thank you
We're here
for
at
having
the
me.
municipal building, and that's how we know each other, from the Municipal Alliance here in North Haledon. And Howard is fascinating, and I regret his wife was too embarrassed
Which would say that.
to be on the show. She's very, very simple and very humble, and but she's a fascinating person.
That's right.
Where did you meet, by the way? She's Indian, right?
Yeah, we met in Calcutta when I was working there as a volunteer a long, long time ago.
Wow, that's great. What connections? That's wonderful.
I was
appreciate
working. Sure, okay, if you want to follow that. I was working for the Mennonite Central Committee in East Pakistan. This was before the War of Liberation, before it became Bangladesh.
Wow.
She was a secretary in the Mennonite Central Committee office in Calcutta, which I had to visit because there was no MCC office in East Pakistan. So that's how we first met.
That's how many years ago is that?
Well, that was 1965.
Wow,
so
God bless her.
that's 50 years ago.
And Shanti is quite an active person.
Oh, she's done a lot of the same kind of work I have, working for other organizations like the Christian Reformed World Relief Committee and for other organizations like that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And now she's involved here locally, and I'm sure with other areas of her ministry, with the senior citizens
Oh,
here
yes,
in
we both
town.
are. We both
That's
are.
great.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we're here to talk about the spreading out of the ministry that Howard embraced as part of World Services. And today we're going to talk about Cambodia.
Yeah. I went to Cambodia in 1997, but as the country representative for Church World Service. Beautiful people, lovely children, and all this sort of a thing.
Very humble, very, very peaceful people.
Buddhist country, yes.
Yes.
Great food.
Yes.
A very difficult language. My wife did a much better job of learning the language than I did.
I stayed with English when I was there.
I did too. I was the boss, right?
Yeah,
so I had lots of English-speaking staff that I worked with. We started off with a few expatriates, but mostly they left, and then we were left with primarily a Cambodian staff.
Oh, okay.
So worked very well with a Buddhist staff. But I wanted to say a little bit about the history of how Church World Service got involved in Cambodia.
Good.
You know that Pol Pot took over in the late 70s and had thrown everybody out of the capital and had pushed them all out into the fields. They were called the killing fields because people were not given enough food and sort of a thing. What most people don't remember is that it was the Vietnamese in 1979 that pushed the Khmer Rouge out of the capital and sort of reestablished a different government. It was half Vietnamese and half Cambodian. All right?
Oh.
Yeah. But that allowed then for folks from outside, like Church World Service, to come in and to start working. And it was a totally devastated place. And so the first phase was a relief phase, right, where we bring in food supplies. Here's a picture of a barge loaded with bags of food, right?
Great,
Grain, that sort of a thing.
right.
You'll see, you can see, there used to be a bridge across the river here, and it was blown up during the war, okay?
Right.
One of the first things we did was emergency relief, and then we started with rebuilding infrastructure. Here you have heavy equipment doing irrigation facilities. Irrigation is very important for growing rice in Cambodia.
Absolutely.
What's interesting about Church World Service is that because it was a socialist country, they were not very comfortable with Americans. So we found a way around that. My boss in New York had been a missionary in Latin America. He knew Cubans who wanted very much to work outside of Cuba in this kind of relief and development work. So we had Christians from Cuba who came and worked in Cambodia, and because of American government restrictions, we couldn't pay them. So we went to our German colleagues, the Christians in Germany, and they said, oh, we don't have those restrictions. We will pay their salaries.
That's great.
So we had an American program in Cambodia with Cuban hydrologists being paid by German Christians.
See, it helps to have head and heart work together.
That's right. Yes. So,
And Jesus gave credit to the steward. Remember the
that's right.
steward
He
who
did, right.
he was wise in the
That's
ways
right.
of this world.
Yeah.
We have to be wise in the way of this world to serve. And I
Yeah,
think that's
that's
great.
right.
That's perfect.
So now, the program began back in '79. When I
Yes.
was there, we celebrated 20 years of service, right? And we had a special celebration because there were many NGOs. NGOs is a non-governmental organization.
Oh, okay.
Church World Service,
Yes.
Catholic Relief Service, they are all referred to as NGOs
Okay.
in general.
Sacred.
Yeah, right? So we had a meeting with the Prime Minister. My boss from New York came there.
Great.
And we had all these other different sorts of things. So we had a wonderful time.
And that's such a beautiful picture.
That's right.
That's such a beautiful picture. Because the children, I mean, the adults, the children as well, beautiful, beautiful people, very simple, very humble,
That's
and so reverent.
Yeah.
Walking along the street, you see them.
Well, everybody has to be a monk. All the men should become a monk, at least for a few months,
right.
as a part of their growing up.
That's great.
Right. I did want to talk more about
Yes.
one of the special aspects of our program in Cambodia. We call it a savings program, SelfHelp Savings. One of the things about development work when you go to a very poor place is that your first impulse is to give them as much as you have, right? Because you see how needy they are.
Right.
The problem with that is they become dependent
Yes.
upon your gifts.
Right.
So one of the things you have to avoid is giving too much. All right?
Fascinating.
And in fact, in India, there was a lady one of the government officials came and said, "What did the Lutherans do for you in this case?" And she said, "They didn't do too much." She said it exactly like that.
Which was a compliment.
That was a compliment, right? Okay, so she knew that. But in Cambodia, what we would do is we'd go into a village and we would find the people who are interested to work together.
Yes.
And these were all our Cambodian staff who were doing this. And the idea was that out of their very meager daily income, they should save some money. All right? So some people could only save like 5 cents. I mean, if you are working every day just to earn enough food to eat,
For the day.
you have no way to save, right?
Right.
I mean, pennies are hard to save in that situation. But the idea was they had to put in some money into the fund themselves. Then Church World Service and other NGOs in different communities would
Right.
add to that.
Supply. Good.
All right.
Good.
But we didn't control the money. They had to learn to control it. The other thing that happens is when the outside agency is doing this, then the question is, can't we manipulate the system to take as much as we can? Because it's their money,
Right.
and we are the poor people, we're entitled to take what we need.
Right.
Okay? But when it's their system, and they have their work with their neighbors, they're responsible to their neighbors, and the control is with them, then they can't do that.
Right.
And so they
That's
then have
cooperation.
It's cooperation.
Isn't that a co-op?
It's
too?
a co-op.
Idea.
It's
yeah.
essentially the cooperative idea.
Right.
And this worked very well. And then with this money, what they did then was to turn around and after they had a fund, they would lend it to different people within the town, within the village, to do different things. For example, in Cambodia, raising pigs is a very good way of raising money. You buy a small piglet for not much money.
Sure.
It eats the scraps from your table
Right.
and roots around, and so it doesn't cost that much. And if you need money, you can turn around and sell the pig, and then suddenly you've cashed in your bank account.
Excellent.
It's been growing, right?
Right,
But it's
right.
it's live, and now you need money, so you sell it to the market, and now you have the money that you need.
Excellent.
So that's what you can do. You can raise pigs, and then you turn around and sell them, and then you have to pay the money back to the fund.
The original.
Right?
Right.
And you have to pay interest.
Good.
All right. Well, money lenders in Cambodia were generally charging almost 100% per month because the credit risk was so bad.
Sure.
So when the groups would charge only 10%,
Whoa, that's
okay,
great.
it's quite a large sum of money, but it's still so much better than what you could get
Yes,
otherwise.
absolutely.
So that interest went into their own fund. And so eventually they had plenty of money and they didn't need our help. They had also learned how to do bookkeeping and how to run meetings and how to make their own decisions. So that was the idea.
And this would be in charge of the charge of the town council
Or just
the tribe,
the
or
village group. I mean,
village.
it could include the town council,
Right.
and the village headman and that sort of a thing.
Exactly.
Sometimes they were interested and took that, and sometimes they weren't interested. But
Okay.
it didn't depend on the village headman in order for it to work.
That's fascinating. And you were there in the original
That's
stages
right.
of the development.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
The other thing, which was the legacy of the war, were anti-personnel landmines.
Mm,
Okay?
right, right.
And
right.
so a very large part of our work during those early years was to pay organizations which were competent and trained to demine. Okay?
Wow,
So this is a
area.
whole other area of how do you train people to get rid of anti-personnel landmines without killing themselves.
Exactly, exactly.
And another whole aspect of this was to give prostheses to people who had lost limbs.
Yes, yes.
In this sort of a thing. So,
That's fascinating.
so that demining aspect was very strong as well.
I mean, the work you did there, it's fascinating, and it's still going on.
It's still going on,
It's
yes.
still
Yeah.
progressing, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being my guest. I
You're welcome.
really appreciate it, and we have to do it again, and if we can convince Shanti to be our guest.
That would be great.
I'd love to hear some more stories about India.
She has her own stories. That's right.
yes.
Yes.
This has been Father Louis Scurti with Howard Jost discussing missionary activity throughout the world, the development services specifically in Cambodia. If you would like to hear from Howard, contact me. Do you have an email you'd like to give?
No, we'll go to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Contact me at fatherlouiscurti@hotmail.com, and I'll get back to you and forward your interest onto Howard. And if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make, and I can read them on the air, just contact me at that email. This has been Father Louis Scurti and Howard Jost, wishing you well. God bless you, and keep the word.